NBA Finals. We just watched game 2 last night. Heat tied the series. Super close game, back and forth. Heat had a 10-point lead. Nuggets had a 10-point lead. Ultimately, the Heat pull it off. Win in Denver. First team to beat Denver in the playoffs at home. So thoughts on the game 2 and just the series as a whole?
Yeah, I think the series is going to be really good. And then I was worried after game 1. I didn't really want to blow out. I picked them in 5, but that was kind of to jinx it to make sure it went farther. Um, but yeah, I think this is a really good series because either of these teams can get cold or hot at a given stretch. And versus Milwaukee, they came back from a 16-point deficit, a 14 and a 10-point deficit going into the fourth quarter. So they came back from a bunch of double-digit leads, and we kind of saw more of the same in this game. That zone defense has been really tough for the Miami Heat, and I felt like with this game, the problem was everyone except for Jokic was cold. And then there was a point where Jamal Murray was out, I believe, till like the 8:40 mark in the first quarter, and he didn't come in and really have a chance to get going or get in a rhythm in this game. And I think the strategy in this game was, let's get ahead, which they did. The Nuggets played really sloppy, and then Jokic was playing catch up from that point on. And then when he went to the bench, that second unit for Denver was the one that gave them the lead with Aaron Gordon at center. I thought they were playing really well with Bruce Brown, Jeff Green, Jamal Murray was running the show there. And they just lost that, and it was all Jokic in the third quarter. He was the only one keeping the minute. And then Jimmy Butler showed up in the fourth quarter, but Duncan Robinson turned into Ray Allen. Bam Adebayo was my huge question mark. I was like, how much of an impact besides goaltending is he going to make in the series? And I thought Bam's been really good. And he's a very streaky, inconsistent shooter, but I will say the guy makes his free throws and he's making the layups and the shots that they're giving him. So Bam has had a huge effect on defense, but I feel like this game was tail of game 1 where the Nuggets players it was a pretty easy game offensively, kind of a feel out game. And then game 2, Gabe Vincent pulling up with authority. Max Strus was struggling mightily in game 1. He showed up. Duncan Robinson showed up. Bam showed up. Caleb Martin hit that huge 3 in the fourth quarter. And I think got to stop this narrative that it's just Jimmy Butler carrying this team, because while he's closing for this team, I see Kyle Lowry come in, rip a 3, and then get a steal on there, play tough defense. See Caleb Martin. Maybe some people were arguing that he should have been the MVP of the Larry Bird MVP in the Eastern Conference Finals. And then you have someone like Robinson, you have someone like Gabe Vincent, and then Max Strus, who is the 4th scorer on that team in the regular season. And then you have someone like Kevin Love, who you can plug in and start him in this game, which I feel like was the biggest difference. But overall, Heat played really well. That zone defense is going to be really tough for the Nuggets. And then Jokic got going, had the 40 points, but Michael Porter, when I said about Michael Porter coming into the playoffs, that game is what I meant. Jamal Murray never really got in a rhythm until the end of the game, and it was too late. And then Aaron Gordon it wasn't his night. So I think I'm not too worried, and I still think the Nuggets will win the series, but I'm glad that's going 7 now.
Yeah, honestly, my takeaway for the Nuggets, Joker. The pudgy king. Good Lord.
You gotta stop the disrespect, though.
Can I say my take, though?
Yeah.
I think Joker has dominated this game and just dominated the league the last 3 years. The only person you can compare him to is LeBron, which is a pretty great comparison. Top 5 player of all time. So for Joker, credit to him, absolutely dominated. 41 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists. Teammates around him couldn't get the shots falling for him. Aaron Gordon had a rough game. Michael Porter Jr. had an atrocious game.
Yeah.
But for Miami, the big takeaway for me was Bam Adebayo was surprisingly the leader of this game. At one point, he was the distributor. Kind of gave me some Draymond Green vibes for a while. Banging some mid-rangers, setting the tone defensively. Bam Adebayo, I think, was the MVP for the Heat this past game. Jimmy Butler was a closer, but I don't think he played his best game. Caleb Martin, absolutely exceptional. I always talk about, I feel like every episode when we talk about basketball, I talk about how narratives can change so quickly. The Heat went from after game one, I'm like, this could be a sweep. Maybe Marcus was onto something.
Yeah.
And then game two comes around. I'm like, this gives me hope for the Heat. I was rooting for the Heat. I had them winning in six. I don't think they're going to win in six. I don't even, they're probably not going to win the series. Let's be honest. The Nuggets are so much better all around, just skill wise. But it's like on one end, you have the Nuggets who should win. Absolutely. You have potentially a dynasty forming with the Nuggets. Have a clear run for the next at least 2-3 years minimum. And then for the Heat, it's like with every win that they have, I'm like, they have the makings like what the Pistons had in '04 and what the Raptors had in 2019. They could be one of those teams. Every decade, I feel like there's one team that wins that maybe it's kind of funky. Maybe they shouldn't win. And that might be the Heat this year. Who knows? If they can somehow beat Denver, we'll see what happens. But for the Heat, they need Jimmy Butler to play at a high level, Bam Adebayo to play like he played in game two, and them to continue shooting 50% from three. And then for the Nuggets, if Jamal Murray gets into rhythm, I just don't think they lose that game. But yeah, overall, I think the Nuggets will probably win in six, but I'm rooting for the Heat here.
Yeah. Have you been surprised how well Aaron Gordon's played in the playoffs?
I didn't think he had it in him, to be honest. Aaron Gordon is somebody I've always liked, but I didn't think that he'd be able to play as he's played defensively, how good of a shooter he's been. Aaron Gordon's played exceptional.
Yeah, and I think like when it comes to like key players on this team, I think Aaron Gordon, when it comes down to it, is a lot more important to keep on this team than Michael Porter. Michael Porter gives me like Kyle Kuzma vibes on this team, and I think that's kind of the player he is. He has one more year to get better, but if I'm the Nuggets, I think with Aaron Gordon, you can replace Michael Porter, but he's been really good defensively, and then he's been able to body up Bam, and then he's an athletic big man. Like you look
Mm,
at him, the guy looks jacked. He was able to hit a three here or there, but then him following Joker on the double team, some of the dishes and alley oops to Aaron Gordon just always being available. And I feel like he's also surprised me as a passer. So definitely want to shout out if we're gonna go in depth about like Andrew Wiggins, players that have revitalized their career, like Aaron Gordon. Gone to the Nuggets. A lot of people said he was trash last year in the playoffs, but when Jamal Murray's on the floor and then he can just kind of be that freelancer for them, I think he's played really well. And then I
absolutely.
think the antithesis of that is Michael Porter, where it's just like he can kill them if he's off. Because when he's off, he's awful.
Yeah, Michael Porter does not have a. There's no. There's no. There's no middle ground.
Yeah.
Michael Porter, you get like Michael Jordan or you get Kwame Brown. Obviously, that's a hyperbole. I don't mean that comments. But when he plays great, this Nuggets team is unbeatable because you have Joker, the best player in basketball. You have Jamal Murray, who we can have that discussion where he falls in the point guard conversation, or just the guard position. And then Michael Porter, if he's playing at his high level, that's an elite big three.
Yeah.
But that's the problem. Michael Porter, it's like every game, it's like every day that ends in Y, he's who knows. It's sporadic.
Yeah.
It's like buying a penny stock. It's like, yes, one week it's up 40% and the next week it's down 80%. And that's Michael Porter.
Yeah, and I think Aaron Gordon and at this point Bruce Brown is more important than Michael Porter because Bruce Brown, shout out to him coming from inner city Boston, huge country music fan, and he's just been an absolute fire starter on the bench. And I love the story of it because the story is literally just Michael Malone called him. He's like, "Hey, why hasn't anyone signed you?" It's like, I don't know, no one knows how to use me.
And then here, that's another person we should shout out.
Yeah,
Mike Malone has consistently been a good coach for the last 5-6 years. Denver consistently being a good team. And now he's finally getting his respect that he deserves. He's in the finals. He's about to win his, most likely going to win the finals. Now he deserves his respect. Where does he fall as far as coaches in the league? I feel like after Spoelstra, you got to put Mike Malone 2 or 3 at the minimum.
yeah, for sure. And then any last words you want to say or shout outs for the Heat?
For the Heat, Kevin Love has been oddly efficient for him.
Mm,
He doesn't seem like he's doing much on the court, but you look closely, setting a lot of screens, facilitating the ball. For somebody who, I mean, sometimes, you kind of forgot about Kevin Love after the Cavs broke up. Didn't play much for Cleveland before got bought out. Gets bought out, joins the Heat, as a role player. And you know what? You got all these other guys who are kind of misfits on this team, and Kevin Love fits this kind of misfit role a little bit. Older player, been playing for forever, and he's been I think he's been a good locker room guy, but also on the floor, he's doing a lot more than what it looks like on the scoreboard.
Yeah, I agree. And then, yeah, my shout out Kyle Lowry because he's
Mm,
coming in and he's hitting big shots when he comes in. Him and Duncan Robinson, who
mm.
was kind of lost towards the end of the bench. Then Oladipo goes down. Oladipo was kind of stealing his minutes in the playoffs. And then he's had some really good drives. He's improved his off the dribble game. And then he's been a 48% 3-point shooter for them in the playoffs, absolutely letting it fly from New Hampshire. And his name is Duncan, of course.
Of course.
But yeah, for me, Duncan Robinson felt like he's been huge off the bench and really one of the key factors because I think Caleb Martin's been that guy, but like when they need someone else to step up to win, they really need Duncan Robinson, and he's rose to the occasion like he did in the finals run.